Hi guys, how is everyone doing? Hopefully everyone's having a great Monday, a great beginning of the week. Today we're going to continue with the Boots project, which is this one that we left behind last week. We're going to be finishing this one up today, and we'll continue with something new in the next couple of days. So make sure to leave me some comments. There's a couple of people that have been asking me about specific topics. I've been writing those down, and then we'll be covering some of those, of course. Yeah, let's go to this one. So this one's going to be like, I would call it, I think the title is going to be like advanced texturing or something like that. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to like touch up a couple of areas. There's a very like commonly known saying in English that says the devil is on the details, right? So you will know how good someone is based on the details. Like this is a perfectly acceptable boot for a game, especially if you're going to be seeing this like at this distance on the side of a character, then this is perfectly fine, right? However, we really want to go the extra mile and create something amazing. So for instance, on that specific area where I just saw that the UV is not like behaving properly, I just painted in the rubber, and then I'm going to go to the leather. I'm going to paint out the leather so that we don't see the grain of the leather. Let's go back to the rubber, for instance, and just add a little bit there, and that's it. Careful there. This is why 3D art takes so long. I've explained this plenty of times here on the channel, but whenever I'm recording the things for you guys, I rush things. I make things a lot faster than you would normally do. Like I would expect someone to spend at least 8 hours on a boot or on a pair of boots for like a game. That's why a character might take like a full month, depending on the quality, right, of the character and everything. But it's important that you guys understand that not everything that I do here on the channel happens at the exact real time that it would happen on a normal production pipeline. So don't be impatient. I tend to work really fast and rush things to show you the tools, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way to do it. So if I take a look at this guy, you're going to see that one of the cool things about the boots is the fact that there's a lot of stitching. They have a lot of like lines and elements that give a very cool texture to the whole thing. So for instance, here where the sole meets the boot, there's a stitching going right through the main line. And here inside of Substance Painter, we actually do have the stitching brushes, which is this one's right here. So I just click over here on the brushes, and if you write stitch, you're gonna find all of this ones right here. But they do work a little bit different than what you might expect. So I'm gonna go here to my layer. I created a new paint layer, not a fill layer, a paint layer. And now I can select any of these brushes and just like paint on top. So for instance, if I grab this Stitches Straight and I just draw, as you can see, we get the stitching, which is amazing because normally you would have to create this stitching on the high poly so that it bakes down on the low poly and then like paint. There's of course ways to simplify this, but in general, that would be the way. Now, the thing that makes these things a little bit different is, first of all, we're using this thing, which is called the roller. And it's just doing a couple of things like stencil and stuff. And then we have a material, like we're actually painting with the material when we do this. So we're painting color, we're painting metalness, we're painting roughness, and we're painting normal maps. And you can change this thing. So for instance, right here, the base color, that's the color of the actual like thread. You can see this is gray. And on the reference that we have, it's actually like dark. So here's where I would definitely go for like a dark, like brown stitching. And now as you can see, it's going to be a dark stitching. I'm actually going to go black for this stitching so we can actually see it. But you can see how it interacts with the normal map of the object, and it creates something that looks very, very, very nice. Now, since this thing, we need to follow the line of the seam right here, I would strongly recommend to turn on this thing, which is called the Lazy Mouse. I'm using my mouse right now. You could also use your tablet, but Lazy Mouse allows you to have a little bit more control because this thing won't start drawing until we are out of the little like black gradient. So it allows you to kind of like see where you're going and correct your stroke as you go. Now, again, here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to paint on the rubber border or on the rubber side of the element, like right there. Try to keep the camera on a flat position so it's a lot easier to visualize what you're doing. And then just follow along. And then here, we're going to try to continue. You might see that a couple of stitches might not be like perfect, but again, as long as the overall texture looks good, we're gonna be in a good position. Like using this little like border that we have here on the sole, I'm using shift and right click to turn the light around so that we can see how this thing like moves. Now see all of that like crunchy like stuff that we get there, that's the normal map because we know that on our low poly, we don't have as much complexity. And that's an unfortunate part of normal maps. Since we're simplifying from a high poly to a low poly, we'll always get that sort of stuff where certain areas might not look great. The way to avoid that, of course, is to increase the poly count, so the amount of polygons that we have on our low poly. If we increase those poly counts, then we can follow the silhouette a lot cleaner, and that way we avoid having all of this weird like issues. And there we go. Oh, that last stroke was a little bit like weird, so let's. There we go. So as you can see, pretty much unnoticeable where it started where it ends, and that's it. We have this. Now I can also see here that we have a little bit of an issue. So again, we're gonna go with the rubber here. Let's. We need to grab our basic brush. Let's turn off this thing. Just paint that in. There we go. So that then, or now we have the stitching. And as you can see, the stitching really helps because it's, even though it's such small detail, it breaks up the shininess of the rubber and the leather, and it creates a different pattern. That's again, that's what we want to do. Over here, we really don't have anything, but now you can see that here on the borders, we have a different stitch. So there, you can actually like download. There's a couple of people that have created some very cool like stitches for this thing, but there's also this one. Double click. There we go. So this is it's called, I think, a ribbon stitch or something like that. And as you can see, it's a little bit more like decorated. Has this like little loops. Really good as well. And we're gonna use that one to create this stitch right here. I know that it might not be the exact same one, but it's gonna give us a nice look. So here, let's make the size a little bit bigger, increase the distance, and start. So there you go. You can see that nice line that we get right there. Now, again, as we just mentioned, the color, it's not supposed to be this one. Let's go for like a dark color. And I think it's a little bit too big, so let's make it slightly smaller. And there we go. Look how nice that looks. Now, careful there. I think I'm gonna stop right there. And then when we continue, it's gonna be like a little cut right there, but I think that's gonna make it look better. It's gonna look like a sharp turn. Let me go. Okay, and then it goes underneath this thing. So I'm actually gonna continue the stitch a little bit there, and then continue the stitch right here on the back. Again, there might be a couple of overlaps here and there, but as long as they're not super obvious, we should be fine. As long as we align them as close as possible. There we go. And look how different that makes it look, right? Now, some of you might be, well, you know what? Like, I like this, but maybe for some reason or whatever, I don't want this stitches to be black, right? But we've been using this black stitch. And unfortunately, since we're actually painting this, there's no sliders to control. We can't really control it, but we can use something called a filter. We can add a filter here that only modifies the color channel. And there's one called the hue, saturation, and lightness. And for instance, here we can change the hue, we can change the lightness, okay, and we can change the saturation. So let's say we want to try like a gray stuff. So saturation goes down, lightness goes a little bit up, and we're like, yeah, I like that. But then again, this is a filter, so at any time we can just turn this off, and we're gonna go back to the original one. So it's a really good way to add the option to change things around. By the way, if you want to learn like these tricks and more about Substance Painter, we just released the new Substance Painter course, and it's available on Skillshare. You know the drill.
Hey guys, Abraham here. I just wanted to remind you guys that we upload all of our courses to Skillshare. Skillshare is this amazing site where you can access a ton of different content to learn, improve, and grow as an artist. We have all of our courses available to watch and learn from right now in Skillshare. You can check the description down here, and Skillshare is offering 1 free month trial to their premium membership. With this membership, you're going to be able to access all of our courses and watch and learn all of the amazing things that we cover with all of the softwares. So, what are you waiting for? Check Skillshare down here below.
There we go. So let's continue with the stitching. And again, if we take a look at Pure Rev right here, which by the way, Pure Rev has an option. I'm going to use it right now to keep the window on top. So let's place it here on an area that's not really affecting us. There we go. Right click, and then if you go Windows or Mode, there's this always on top, Control-Shift-A. I don't use the shortcut as much. And that's it. So now we can work here, and we can keep the image here and just move it around. Pure Rev is an amazing software, by the way. If you guys haven't like downloaded it, it's just great. Now, Now you can see that for this area right here, the stitching is different. It's more like a straight stitch. So we're gonna go with this straight stitch right here. Let's go back to the layer, to the paint layer. And the problem is, oh, double click. Oh, there you go. Sometimes the stitches work depending on the direction of the brush. This one is working like properly, so like that. And then make it slightly bigger. And yeah, let's just start adding it. So in this case, I am gonna bring go to the color as well. This seems to be a little bit more on the beige side. So I'm gonna go for like this like light brown to give it a little bit of a different feel. You can see it here on this one. So I'm not sure if it's because the thread is like a little bit damaged or something, but I think it might be a good idea to tweak it around. So we're gonna go there, all the way here. Make sure to follow like the waviness of the form. We don't want to break that. There we go. And again, the devil's on the details, so let's go all the way in. So if anyone at any point like gets the object and like tries to analyze it and stuff, they can see that we went all the way. I love this. I remember when I first did, or when you had to do stitches again on the high poly, the high polys would get so freaking high, because normally we would use like a cylinder, like a torus. We'd use like a torus shape to create like the stitching shape, and then either that or an alpha. The problem with the alphas is it tend to be like low quality. So having the actual like torus create the thread, it used to be the best way to do it. But then again, it became way too heavy. Like I remember a character I did once. I think I've shown you guys before. Is this like Abomination, like stylized Abomination? He had all of this like Frankenstein stitches all over the body. The body was like 1 million polygons. The stitches were like 5 million polygons only on the stitches. So it was quite heavy for that time. But there you go. Look at that. That looks really nice. And again, at any point, I mean, if we had done this on a different layer, we might be able to change the like saturation and value things. Here, we're not really going to be able to do that. And then we can see that there's also this like big stitch, like this big fat stitch. It kind of looks like a metal stitch. So I'm actually going to use this, which is the metal stitching right here, which, as you can see, gives us that sort of effect. The only thing is I don't want to make the metal. So I'm going to go down here. And what we can do is the metallic, we can bring it down. It's going to be more like a plastic effect, like that. And now, of course, we change the color. We can actually sample the color straight from the element. And there we go. That's what we get. So we just need to make this bigger, because those are supposed to be bigger. And we get this sort of effect. So that one looks okay. The spacing on the elements, it's a little bit like big. So I'm going to bring the spacing in a little bit more over here. That's going to give me a couple more. It's a little bit too much. Let's keep it like at 60. So now when I draw, as you can see, they're a lot closer together. Now these are way flatter. These look a little bit too like bumpy, right? So that we can change down here on the, it's using height map. Okay. Usually the height map has a channel, but we don't have one channel here. So in this case, I think I'm going to do it on a different layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw them. So I'm going to draw them all around the boot like this. Oh, have a really bad pulse for this kind of things. Let's go. There we go. That last one, since this is paint layer, we can just erase the last one. There we go. And now what I can do is I can go to the height layer, or to the height channel, and decrease the layer height by like a lot. So let's keep this at like 32. And that way we're gonna get the detail without actually having anything else. Let's do the same thing on the other side, since we're in this one already. So let's go to the paint layer. We don't have it on this like upper area, so we're just gonna have it like right there. And then we go back to this other one. We grab our stitches here. Let's sample the exact color so that we match it. There we go. Oh. There we go. And let's just add the stitching as well. I actually am gonna go quite closer because again my pulse is it's not really good. So now one of the disadvantages of using this method, I've actually had an issue with this a couple of months ago, is that since this is on the textures themselves, later on if you want to like print or do something else with the character, this is only textures. So neither the high poly nor the low poly have this information. You could technically use a displacement map with the height information to create the volume, but then you need to subdivide the tools quite a bit, and it's just a mess. So if you know that you're gonna be using this for anything else than like a video game and stuff like that, I would strongly recommend that you still bake this with a high poly so that you have access to that sort of stuff. Again, you don't always have to do it, but it has some potential drawbacks. Let's go up. By the way, I'm gonna be releasing the rules for the contest this Wednesday. The Wednesday is gonna be our debut, because I'm actually finishing the last couple of parts of the well, by the time you watch this, it's probably gonna be done. But I need to do the promo video and stuff like that of the course that I'm doing. It is a character course for those of you that have been asking about that. It is a character course. It's gonna be a little bit different to what you're used to. Hopefully you like it. I've been having a lot of fun with that one, to be honest. And let me know in the comments also what kind of stuff would you like next. I've been thinking about like an advanced character course for video games. I think that could be fun. There we go. Cool. So that's it. We have the stitches right there. Now the last stitches that we need are the ones right here on the top. As you can see, we also have those sort of like metal things on this side right here. So yeah, let's first start with like the basic ones. This ones that I've been using. So let's create the stitching right there, and the stitching right there. And that one, you always want to follow the shape of the border. If the border is a little bit irregular, just roll with it. Here I'm gonna cut it. So we have two different ones, so we get that very nice, like sharp turn. Careful there. So I'm gonna go into eraser mode, and very, very, very carefully, I'm gonna erase that last stitch. Let's go back to brush mode, and we're just gonna push this one over here. Oh yeah, by the way, there's gonna be a ZBrush Summit very, very soon. I think it's in September, and I'm expecting news from Maxon. I got an email a couple of days ago about the acquisition. So every person that had a ZBrush or a Pixelogic account is gonna be merged into a Maxon account. You know, we've all talked about this before. It's not something that we might love or be especially like thrilled about, right? But it's how these things work. So hopefully they show some cool stuff and some cool tools in the next event. Okay, here let's also do the same thing. So we're gonna reduce the spacing. We'll reduce the metallic first, and we can just remove the metallic right there. There we go. Now just spacing. Here, let's bring this to 60. Careful there. Make sure that the spacing is as even as possible. Well, actually, I messed something up here because I forgot to change the color. It's like a dark. There we go. There we go. someone's a cowboy, you can let me know what these things are. I'm guessing it's just some sort of detail. I don't think they serve like a functional purpose. But if they do, let me know in the comments. There we go. And look at that. So now our, what's the word? Our boot looks even better, right? Because we were able to add all of this very, very cool details. The next step is just to like tweak things around and make sure this thing looks as nice as possible, depending on the kind of like element that we want. I like to do sometimes, not always, but I'm gonna show you on this one. I like to call it the extreme. So if you've ever done some like traditional painting, they always tell you don't ever use pure white and don't ever use pure black, because once you use pure white or pure black, you can't go any further, right? So that's the top, that's the limit. So I would like to add some highlights to this thing and some shadows to give a little bit more contrast to the whole element. So I'm gonna add a fill layer right here. It's only gonna be color, and I'm gonna be using a sort of like beige color like this. Let's go back to base color, and I'm gonna use the black mask and I'm gonna use a generator, and we're gonna use a dirt generator. So we know that, sorry, not the dirt, the metal etchware. So we know that this metal etchware is gonna hit certain areas with like more intensity, right? And if we change this to linear dodge, which is gonna combine the colors, we can play around, and as you can see, we can add a little bit of extra white in just a couple of areas, just a couple of places that we're going to be pretty much like damaging, right? And I really like using this because, as you can see, we get a very, very cool effect. The one thing I don't love is the fact that we're getting this thing pretty much on top of the one that we had before. So what we can do is we can change the seed to get a slightly different result, and that's also going to give us a cool effect right there. So now we're going to see certain areas are going to be even more damaged than others. And you can, of course, control like how much of the damage you want to see, how little of the damage you want. I think I'm going to go with something. I'm even going to leave this one on the soles right here. The one thing I am going to do is I'm going to add a paint layer, and just using a like dirt spots brush, I might get rid of some of the, what's the word? Some of the effects. Let's turn off the distance right there. What the hell? Why am I still on this sort of like a brush thing? There we go. Okay, so now I'm gonna remove some of the damage in certain areas. I am gonna leave a little bit of damage on the sole as well, but I'm gonna remove some of it because remember, it's not normal to have like a uniform damage thing, right? We could also use the trick that I've used before, but we've been doing a lot of like artistic intervention on this boot, so I think this is gonna look better this way. So there we go. As you can see, this little extra layer there, it adds like a little nice touch to the whole thing. The other one that I really like using is an ambient occlusion map. So I'm gonna bring in again a dark color. I'm actually gonna use a pink color first so that you guys see. Let's add a black mask, and then we're gonna add a fill layer, and we're gonna look for the ambient occlusion map of the object. By default, this ambient occlusion is flipped. So whites are, or like, we want this to be the other way around. So we're going to add a levels, and we're going to invert this. So now, as you can see, we have this purple thingy on the crevices of the object. And I'm going to really, really crunch these values so that we get only like the main borders of the thing. See that right there? So as you can see, we're only getting purple on like the crevices of the object. We're still getting some other areas, but the crevices are the ones that I care the most about. Now we can change this to something like a dark red, for instance, and change this to like an overlay, so this thing gets darkened. And again, what that's going to help me with, it's going to give me an extra layer of like contrast on those areas, specifically like this one right here. Like I feel like the bake didn't work out as nicely as I was expecting. So this one could help. And at any point, I can go back here to the levels and just push this to give myself a little bit more detail if needed. Just like play around with the levels literally. So there you go. So as you can see, we have that extra layer of darkness. I do think the red's being a little bit too much. So let's desaturate it a little bit. We still get the dark color, but it's a little bit more desaturated. And there we go. That's pretty much it, guys. Now we're ready to bring this into an engine. We're ready to bring this into Maya, Marmoset, whatever, and get a nice render. Today, I'm just going to do a quick iRay, just for the sake of time. This is the one that we've used before. Let me see if I have a nicer looking like element. I really like Corsica Beach. I'm quite fond of that one. The studio lights are also quite good, like this Studio 8. It's quite nice. It's a little bit blue though. It's like an horror film. Let's use this one. There we go. That looks very cool. We get a nice rim light as well. And there we go. Our boot is finished, my friends. So thanks everyone for enjoying the series. Hopefully everyone liked it. I think it was a cool process. We get to see a little bit of photogrammetry, cleanup, the typical UV's workflow here for the cleanup, of course. But yeah, let me know in the comments what else we need to see. I know that I think the only pending project that we have is the lighthouse. I know about that one. I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate that one because that one's a lot more ambitious than what we initially thought. But yeah, that's it for now, guys. Thank you very much. Make sure to leave a like, share, subscribe. You know the drill. I'll see you back on the next one. Bye-bye.